I came home that day, expecting the warmth of my wife's embrace. Instead, I found myself locked out, not just from my house, but from the life I thought I knew. The door wouldn't budge, and neither would the truth. My wife had changed the locks, and my world forever. I was handed divorce papers like a death sentence, my heart pounding in disbelief. The woman I loved, the woman who said she loved me, had been lying for months, sneaking around with another man. I was blindsided, betrayed, humiliated. And now, all I have left is this burning need to understand why. Why did she destroy everything we built? Wes, as soon as the plane landed at Sacramento International, Wes Hardaway pulled out his cell phone. "Hi, honey," he said cheerfully when his wife Marlene picked up. "I'm back from San Diego. The plane just landed, so I should be home in about an hour after I get my bags in the car. Love you too. Bye." While driving along I-80 toward Fair Oaks, he reminded himself how much he disliked traveling for work. Wes didn't have to go often, but when he did, it usually meant being away for 2 or 3 nights, which he did not enjoy. Unfortunately, his boss, Edith Norton, didn't like traveling either, so he was the one who had to go south each quarter to represent their office. At least he wouldn't have to travel again for the next 3 months. He thought hopefully that maybe now Marlene would be ready to start a family. She wanted to wait until her freelance art business was doing well. From what Wes had seen of her work, he felt she was doing great, so he hoped she would feel more open to the idea. Working from home would make parenthood easier. At least that was his plan. As he drove down the smooth streets of Fair Oaks, past the neat homes, he started humming a classic rock tune from the airport. The melody quickly disappeared when he pulled into his driveway and saw that his garage door opener wasn't working. Frustrated, he parked and walked to the front door. To his surprise, his key wouldn't fit into the lock. He checked to make sure he had the right key, and yes, it was definitely the house key. After trying several times in vain, he gave up and rang the doorbell. Nothing happened inside. He tried again with the same result. "Hey, honey, it's me," he called out. "There's something wrong with the lock. Can you let me in?" When there was no reply, he knocked on the door, hoping that Marlene would hear him. This time he heard movement inside, followed by Marlene's voice. "The reason your key won't work is because I've had the locks changed. The garage door code is different, too." Wes stared at the door, confused. "I don't understand, Marlene. Let me in." "No, Wes, you can't come in. You don't live here anymore." "What do you mean I don't live here anymore? Of course I live here. This is my house. What's going on?" There was a long pause. Then he heard her voice again, slightly raised. "Well, it's about time. Talk to the man behind you." Wes turned around to see a man in a baseball cap walking towards him. Before he could say anything, the man asked, "Are you Wesley Hardaway?" "Yes, but who?" Before he could finish, the stranger handed him an envelope. "Wesley Hardaway, you have been served." "But what is this?" "That is your copy of your wife's request for a divorce." "Divorce?" "That is correct, Mr. Hardaway. In addition, your wife has requested that I give you this order. You need to stay at least 200 yards away from Mrs. Hardaway at all times." "What? This is unexpected. Why would I need to?" Wes stopped himself and turned back to the door. "Marlene, let me in. We need to talk about this." "What seems to be the problem here, sir?" A deep voice came from behind. Wes spun around to see a police officer standing there, ready to take action. Before Wes could explain, the man in the hat spoke for him. "Mr. Hardaway just learned about the order, officer. He needs to stay 200 yards away from his wife's home." With that, the process server handed the officer a copy of the order. The officer looked it over and then turned to Wes. "Sir, you need to leave this place immediately. If you don't, I will have to take you away for not following a court order." He looked at Wes, waiting for a response. "Do you understand what I said?" Wes had always been taught to respect authority, so he blinked a few times and nodded slowly. "Yes, officer. I guess I understand." He started walking down the path back to his car, feeling dazed, as if he had just received a sudden shock. With neighbors watching, he slowly backed out of the driveway and drove away. "What do I do now?" he wondered, still in a daze. "You're safe now, Mrs. Hardaway," the officer called through the door. "He's gone." "Thank you, officer," came Marlene's voice. "I'm just going to stay in the house for a while." The officer nodded, stepped away, and left with the process server. Marlene Hardaway stood inside the front door, taking a deep breath, not of relief but of excitement. I did it, she thought happily. He never saw it coming. She felt a presence beside her. The man stepped closer and said softly, You were very strong with Wes. That was impressive. She kept looking at the front door. Did it make an impression? Yes, it really did, he replied. It made an impression on me too. Why don't you see just how much? As they stood together in that moment, Marlene took a deep breath, feeling the tension in the air. Wes. Wes woke up early the next morning, confused and unsure of where he was. He had only managed a few hours of restless sleep, and finally noticed he was lying in an unfamiliar bed at a low-priced motel. It all felt surreal, almost like a bad dream. He spent the afternoon and evening trying to understand what had gone wrong when he got home. When that didn't work, he began recalling everything from the days and weeks before. It was frustrating. He couldn't think of anything that could explain his wife's reaction. With no answers, he pushed those thoughts aside to focus on the present. On the bright side, he had his shaving kit with him from his trip. Unfortunately, all his clothes were dirty or wrinkled, and he couldn't go home for fresh ones since he was locked out. Then a more troubling thought crossed his mind. Because of the restraining order, he might need to hire a lawyer just to get his clean suit. He glanced at the cheap clock on the nightstand and realized it was too early to call a lawyer. His empty stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten dinner the night before. Food had to come first. He found a fast food restaurant nearby that opened early and quickly ate a filling breakfast while making a list of things he needed to do. The first task was one he was particularly anxious about, calling his boss to let her know he probably wouldn't be in. Edith Norton was the type of manager who liked to keep an eye on everything her team did. Even though she had sent him to San Diego, she wasn't happy about him being away. He knew she wouldn't appreciate him missing work on the day he was supposed to return. Back at the motel, he called Edith early, hoping to leave a voicemail. Naturally, she picked up right away, and her response was exactly what he had feared. He had planned to say he had a cold, but she wouldn't accept that. Unable to come up with a better excuse, he found himself telling her the truth. She did not seem sympathetic and kept asking him questions until he revealed more details about the distressing event. Her response was far from understanding. She kept implying that he must have played a part in his wife's behavior. The only way he could convince her to let him take a day off was to mention that without clean clothes, he would probably make quite an impression. She huffed and scolded him, but eventually agreed, saying, "You'd better be at work tomorrow, in clean clothes." He muttered under his breath and quickly hung up. With that difficult task behind him, he started looking for a lawyer. There were many law firms in California's capital, but most didn't list family law as one of their specialties. After browsing online, he searched for the best family law practice in Sacramento. Unfortunately, when he called a recommended firm, he found out that his wife had already hired them. He tried contacting several more recommendations, but found they couldn't see him for weeks. Finally, in desperation, he called a small firm, hoping they might have more availability. When he reached Winston Samuels & Associates, he was relieved to learn that Mr. Samuels could see him that very afternoon. He made the appointment, but wondered why the lawyer wasn't busier. Still, he knew he needed help. "I need assistance quickly," he told himself. After finishing that task, he noticed his wrinkled pants and wasn't excited about using the motel's laundry facility. Buying a change of clothes for tomorrow would probably be the easiest solution, he decided. This thought led him to check his bank account. He felt a wave of relief when he saw his latest paycheck had been deposited while he was away. Then he thought about his meeting with Winston Samuels. I wonder how much that's going to cost. He checked the joint money market account he shared with his wife and was shocked to see it had only $1 left. I can understand her taking half, but emptying the whole account is just wrong, he thought. He finally calmed down enough to add that to his list of concerns for his new lawyer. His next task was to drive to a Target store nearby for some shopping. He found some office-appropriate slacks and a shirt, as well as socks. Carrying his new items in a red Target bag back to his car, he unexpectedly decided to drive by his house. As he slowly went down his street, he peeked through his front windows but saw no signs of life. Feeling sad, he drove back to the motel, stopping only to grab some more fast food. After a quiet lunch in his hotel room, Wes drove downtown to the law firm he had called. It was located in an older office building just a few blocks from the Capitol Mall. After checking the directory in the lobby, he took the elevator up to the 6th floor and walked to an office door marked Winston Samuels, Attorney at Law. When he entered and introduced himself, the receptionist asked him to take a seat and then went through a door. A few minutes later, she returned and invited him to follow her. She led him to a corner office and opened a door labeled Winston Samuels, Attorney at Law. The man who greeted him looked to be in his 60s, with short gray hair combed back neatly and wire-rimmed glasses resting on his nose. Wes thought, at least the attorney seems experienced. With a nod from his lawyer, Wes quickly shared what was happening at home and handed over the papers he had received. The attorney took his time reading them and then looked at Wes. "All right, young man. What can I help you with today?" Wes looked hopeful. "Is there any way to lift this restraining order? I think if I could talk to Marlene, I might understand her better. She has made some quick decisions, and I don't even know what's happening with her." The attorney joined his fingers together and then turned to glance outside. After a moment, he faced Wes again and leaned in. "If you don't mind, I would like to share a few points with you." Wes nodded, and the attorney began to list them. First, in California, if one partner wants a divorce, the other cannot stop it. It's important to understand that your wishes don't matter here. Second, by keeping you out of your house, it's clear your wife doesn't want to talk about her choices with you. Third, with the restraining order, she has made it almost impossible for you to meet unless her lawyer is involved. Fourth, by taking control of your shared financial accounts, she is trying to pressure you into agreeing to the divorce quickly. We will get your half back eventually, but she hopes you feel the strain of finances before then, especially with your new living costs. Keep in mind, you are still responsible for the mortgage and utility bills for the house, even if you aren't living there. Lastly, your wife has been thinking about this for quite a while. "How do you know that?" Wes asked, surprised. The attorney remained calm. "Getting a restraining order doesn't happen overnight. She must have hired a lawyer some time ago. It takes time for a lawyer to prepare everything and present it to a judge. Changing locks and hiring a process server also requires planning. Clearly, she has thought this through." Wes slumped in his seat. "She never gave me any warning. Just last week, she told me she cared about me when I called from the airport." The attorney showed no reaction. Wes sighed. "I guess it's really happening. I'd still like to know why. Why would she decide to end our marriage without even talking to me?" The attorney shook his head. "I can't answer that, but I might know someone who can help. There's a detective agency we frequently work with. They are effective and priced fairly. They are also in the same building as us. If you'd like, I can reach out to them for you." "Yes, I want to know what's happening," Wes replied eagerly. The attorney called the receptionist to arrange a meeting. A short while later, she knocked on the door and told them Trevor could see Wes now. Half an hour later, Wes was outside the detective's office, noticing the door sign looked similar to the attorney's office sign. Unsure, he knocked. The door was opened by a neatly dressed, middle-aged man. "Come in, Mr. Hardaway," the man said with a smile. "I've been expecting you. I'm Trevor Samuels, the head of this agency." "Nice to meet you," Wes said, shaking his hand. Then he paused. "Did you say Trevor Samuels?" The detective smiled. "Yes, I'm Winston's brother. We both chose different paths in law. I became a detective while he got a law degree. After I left the police force, we started working together." Noticing Wes's hesitation, he added, "Don't let that hold you back. I have 25 years of experience as a detective in San Francisco. Now let's head to my office and chat." Trevor quietly listened as Wes shared his concerns. "Your brother says I can't stop this divorce," he finished, "but I want to know what's really happening. It's hard enough to have everything change so fast. It's humiliating that she would lock me out and ask for protection. I want to know why she did that." Trevor nodded. "I understand your feelings, and I'm confident we can find some answers about her actions. But I don't need to do an investigation to guess why she filed that order, if you're being truthful and have never been harmful to her." "Never! I would never do that!" Wes quickly interjected. "In that case, it seems your wife might be preparing for her future at your expense." Wes looked puzzled. When her friends ask about the divorce, she can simply say, "I had to get a restraining order against Wes." From then on, people will see you in a bad light, and they may think they know why she locked you out and filed for divorce. You'll be looked down upon while she, looking innocent, doesn't have to say anything negative about you, Trevor explained. Wes was shocked. I can't believe she would act that way. Trevor nodded knowingly. She has set this up very cleverly, Mr. Hardaway. The only question remaining is why she has chosen to do it. I think I can get some answers for you pretty quickly, maybe as soon as next week. That would be great, Wes replied, shaking the man's hand. For the rest of the afternoon, Wes followed his lawyer's advice to protect his finances, but what he had learned earlier kept bothering him. The next morning, Wes arrived at work on time, only to be stopped in the lobby by Edith Norton. Well, I see you're here, Mr. Hardaway. I hope you're ready to handle the workload that's piled up on your desk after your recent conference and personal matters. He thought, I really don't like that woman, but he simply nodded and hurried to his cubicle. By skipping lunch and working hard, Wes made a decent amount of progress on his tasks. However, all his concentration faded when Trevor Samuels called later that afternoon. We have some news, Wes. Our researcher found some information I think you'll want to see. Can you come in tomorrow to discuss it? Can't you just tell me now? I don't mean to be secretive, Wes, but our policy is to share findings in person. All right, Wes said, a bit reluctantly. I'll try to get some time off. Unless you hear from me, I'll be there first thing in the morning. Miss Norton was exactly as stern as he had feared. Mr. Hardaway, I don't care what's going on in your life. You can't just leave work whenever you like. I've been understanding so far, but if you insist on being absent tomorrow, it will count against your vacation time, understood? Yes, ma'am, he answered quietly, not worried about losing a vacation day. What did it matter? The vacation I planned with Marlene is off anyway. Trevor Samuels was in a good mood when Wes walked into the office the next morning. We got lucky, he told Wes. Come on in and I'll show you what I mean. He led Wes to his desk and turned the computer screen so Wes could see it. The detective clicked on a file, and the screen showed a strange image of Wes's house from across the street. Don't worry about the picture, Trevor assured him. That's a special lens that makes it look odd, but you can still see what you need. A moment later, a silver car appeared from the left of the screen. The car turned into Wes's driveway, the garage door opened, and it pulled inside. Soon, the garage door closed, and after a moment, the screen went dark. Wes looked confused. What was I just looking at? Trevor clicked the mouse, and the scene reappeared. Then he paused it. Look at the date and time, he said, pointing at the screen. That's yesterday at 11:35, Wes said, still unsure. That's not your wife's car, is it? Trevor asked. No, she drives a Honda. Then it hit him. Oh, she must have had a visitor. Exactly, one who has a way to get into your garage. He clicked again, and Wes watched the garage door open, the car backed out, and drove away. The time was 1:32 p.m. on the same day. Wes felt uneasy. Well, I guess it didn't take her long to meet someone new. Trevor wasn't done. He fiddled with the mouse and opened a different file. As the video played, Wes realized it showed the same car pulling into the Hardaway garage. When Wes looked at Trevor, the detective pointed to the time date stamp. Wes was shocked. That's from 3 weeks ago, he exclaimed. Trevor nodded. Yes, it is. How often? Wes asked, feeling worried. We have recordings for the last 6 months. We haven't reviewed all of them, but it seems your wife has had the same visitor 2 to 3 times a week. Now Wes felt a knot in his stomach. How could I have missed this? He turned to the detective. Where did you find all this? He demanded. Trevor leaned back. Your area has a neighborhood watch. Some neighbors have advanced doorbells that record movement. Anything they see gets saved online. Most of it is just everyday things like deliveries, but sometimes it catches something more concerning. Wes gritted his teeth. It's too bad we never found out who it was. Trevor didn't answer. He clicked the mouse again, showing another file. This time, as the car arrived at Wes's driveway, there was a delay before the door opened. Trevor paused the video. Then he magnified the image. The detective pointed. There's the license plate. I don't know it. I have a contact at the DMV, Trevor said, clicking again. A driver's license appeared on the screen with a photo of a man looking blankly at the camera. Does the name John Mackenzie ring a bell? He asked. Wow! Wes exclaimed. "Marlene does a lot of work for his company." That's probably how they met. He stood up quickly. "I'm going to confront him right now." "Hold on," Trevor said, reaching out to keep Wes seated. "This is why I want to discuss things in person. Let's think this through before you act impulsively." Wes glared at him, but finally sat back down. "That's better," the detective said kindly. "Now listen, Wes. You could be very skilled, or perhaps the other person is tough. Either way, acting quickly might give your wife more reasons to justify her actions against you. Your reputation is already fragile. Don't risk it even more." Wes looked down, feeling defeated. "I don't like trouble. If I confront him, I might make things worse." He sighed. "I can't imagine Marlene would be happy about any conflict." He looked at Samuels again. "But I feel I must act. If I don't, it feels like I'm giving in to them. You said my reputation is at risk. I can't let them win." "Wes, I get where you're coming from, but there are smarter ways to handle this without making things harder for yourself." "Like what?" "I've been talking about your situation with Dash Daniels, my tech expert. She knows a lot about social media and modern communication. She has some ideas that might help." Wes looked unsure. "I don't know about that. Just let her share her thoughts. You have nothing to lose." Trevor led a hesitant Wes down the hallway to a door marked, "The Anti-Social Network." "Don't pay attention to that name," the detective said quickly. "It's just her quirky sense of humor." He glanced at Wes. "I know she's a bit different, but don't let that scare you." With that, he knocked on the door and stepped inside, with Wes following. Wes's first impression was that he had entered a college dorm. In the middle of the room was an old wooden desk with several monitors, one of which was enormous. On one side, a futon was cluttered with books and magazines. The dark gray walls had posters of various people, most of whom Wes didn't know. But the most unusual part of the room was the person inside, a tall, slim young woman dressed casually in high-waisted jeans and a black t-shirt. She had many tattoos on her left arm. Her striking makeup contrasted with her pure white hair, which was styled upward except for one side, where it was cut short. To Wes, she looked like a character from an anime. While he was trying not to stare, she extended her hand for a handshake. "I'm Dash Daniels," she said softly, which was surprising given her look. "You must be the person I'm meeting." Wes started to shake her hand, confused by her words. "The what?" he asked. "If your soon-to-be ex-wife is the one who has strayed, that makes you the one who has been hurt," she explained casually. "Now, Dash," Trevor interrupted. "Be kind." He began to leave, but turned to Wes with a pleading look. "Just listen to her, okay?" Then he walked out. Wes turned back to Dash, who was motioning for him to sit on the futon. "Please, have a seat and tell me what's going on." She then sat cross-legged on the other end of the futon, and Wes noticed she was barefoot. After he sat down, she began speaking. "I don't usually take on cases like this, but I really care about loyalty, so I'm willing to help you. I already know some basics from my dad, but—" "Wait, Trevor is your father?" Wes asked, surprised. "Yep," she grinned. "And Winston is my uncle. I guess you didn't know this is a family business. Anyway, I hear your ex has put you in a hard spot. If we're going to change that, I need to understand what happened and how you feel about it. The whole story, you know?" "Not exactly," Wes admitted. "And you'll have to forgive me, but I don't really understand what you do or how a tech expert can help me. No offense." "None taken," she smiled. "As you heard, I do a lot of online research for my dad and my uncle. But my main focus is online networking and managing how people are seen. That's what you need if you want to counter what your ex is doing." "But," he hesitated. "Look," she said gently, "do you spend time online? Do you use Facebook, Twitter, or watch YouTube? Any of that?" "No, not really." "You mean never?" Despite her dark lipstick, she had a warm smile. "Okay, let's go over a little guide to social networking. Many people are online almost all the time. That's where they get their news, meet people, and find entertainment. It might seem invisible to you, but for those engaged, it's a huge deal." She saw the doubt on his face. "Think I'm exaggerating? There are people on YouTube who make a lot of money just sharing their gaming experiences. There are tons of small businesses that sell online without stores but make big profits. There are big brands whose most important voices are internet stars, not movie stars. It keeps going. There are ideas, songs, and phrases that spread quickly in society, and if the mainstream media doesn't catch on, you might never hear about them. On the other hand, there are celebrities out there getting great or terrible press just online, and their success depends on how people react in spaces like Twitter. But how does any of this relate to me? Honestly, I'm not sure yet. But my job is to find a way to catch that unseen audience's attention and win them over. If I can do that, your ex will be outnumbered. Can you really do that? We'll find out. But if you're willing to try, I need you to tell me your story again, and this time focus on how it made you feel, what you thought, and how you reacted. Those are the feelings that drive people, emotions, not just facts. Wes paused for a moment before shrugging. What do I have to lose? For the next hour, he shared his story from a new and sometimes tough viewpoint. Start from when your plane landed, Dash encouraged. Tell me what you felt, what you said when you called her. As he remembered those moments, he felt all the emotions he had gone through, he still felt, come rushing back. It was hard, but also a relief to talk about it all. While he talked, the young woman wrote down a lot of notes and asked thoughtful questions. When he finished his story, she reviewed her notes. Then she looked at him, her face serious. I think I see how we should approach this, she said. But first, I need to ask you something, Wes. How strong are you? He frowned, puzzled. Do you mean how much can I lift? No, she said, still serious. I mean how strong is your character? How do you handle criticism? How much do other people's opinions matter to you? Well, I guess I'm about average in that regard. She studied him closely. Well, I guess we'll find out. I don't get it. She leaned back on the couch. Every good story has what they call an arc. She made a half circle in the air with her finger. The main character starts strong, then something unexpected happens, and the character faces difficulties until it reaches the lowest point. After that, things can get better again. The audience wants to cheer for the main character, but they need to see the struggles first. We need to show your story arc, Wes. I'm still not sure I really understand, but if it means facing some challenges, I'm already there. A sad smile touched her lips for a moment. We'll see. She straightened up, looking focused. Okay, here's what's next. Be ready for a quick trip with me. I'll call when it's time. Can you do that? Sure, he replied. But if it's during work hours, my boss will complain. I'm already on her list of troublemakers, so a little extra won't matter. Great, she said, jumping up with excitement. I will enjoy this, she smiled, shaking his hand. I really value honesty. Wes left the building, trying to recall everything that had just happened. What did I do to end up like this? He wondered. And what have I gotten myself into now? A day later, Wes was having a late lunch at his desk when his phone rang. It was Dash. Can you come pick me up? She asked. We have a short window of time, and I'm not sure when we'll get another chance. My boss won't be happy, he answered with a sigh, but that's nothing new. I can be at your office in 20 minutes. Miss Norton wasn't pleased with Wes's request, but since he had finished his work, she reluctantly agreed. Just remember, this personal time will count against your vacation, she called after him. When he reached the building, Dash was waiting outside, dressed casually. You've changed your look, he joked, but she was quiet. We're going to your house, she said, catching his attention. You know I can't be there if Marlene is home. Don't worry, she assured him. My dad saw her leave just before I called. He'll keep an eye out while we're there. Okay, so are we going to sneak in? Nothing that dramatic. You just need to go through what happened the best you can. What events? When you got home from the airport. All right, and what will you do? He asked. I'll be recording everything, she said with a smile. What? Why? It's simple, Wes. We need to give your audience some background before sharing your story. He shook his head, confused. Audience? I don't have any fans. She grinned. Not yet, but that's not the point now. I want you to tell me again how you felt during that experience. What were your emotions at that time? Well, when I drove up to the house, I was excited to see Marlene, but when I couldn't get in the door, I felt frustrated and a bit annoyed. And when she told me she had locked me out, I was stunned. Going from excitement to confusion to sadness so quickly really shocked me. I just couldn't understand what was happening. The rest, dealing with the process server, the orders, the police, only made the confusion and sadness worse. That's perfect, she said excitedly. Now, when we get to your house, I want you to walk through what happened step by step. We need to see all the feelings you just described. Do you think you can do that? I don't know, he said uncertainly. I'm not the best actor. I don't want you to act, she replied. Just show me what you did and remember how you felt. I'll guide you through it. Now give me your cell phone. After she did something to it, she pulled out a new device. Take this Bluetooth earpiece. It will let me talk to you while you go through what happened. As they approached his neighborhood, it seemed quiet. When he parked in his driveway, Dash helped him with the earpiece, making sure it was hidden. Then she called him on her phone. Speaking softly, she asked him to get out and walk to his front door. As he did, he noticed Dash on the sidewalk with a second cell phone recording everything. Don't look at me, she said. Just try to get inside your house like you did earlier. Wes turned away and stepped onto the porch. As he fumbled with his house key, he felt memories creeping back, darkening his mood. Ring the doorbell, Wes, he heard in his mind. He pressed the button, remembering how frustrated he had felt. Now knock on the door, a voice urged, and he knocked firmly, feeling the old irritation of not getting into his own home. Marlene is yelling at you from the other side now, the voice continued. She was telling you she had changed the locks. Then came the big news. She wanted a divorce. Wes stepped back, recalling his shock. It wasn't just her words, but the sharpness of her voice that stuck with him. He tried to argue, but she was firm. The process server is coming up behind you, the voice in his ear said. Wes turned to see Trevor Samuels wearing a cap pulled low, walking toward him with some papers. He handed Wes a copy and began reading from it. The words seemed confusing, but Wes stared as if they held an unwelcome truth. He turned back to the front door. Knock again, the voice urged, and he tapped on the door. You should go, Wes. A sense of urgency filled his mind. Without thinking, he let his arms drop, hung his head, sighed, and started walking back down the path. His legs felt heavy as if they were stuck. His once happy world had collapsed, and ahead was only a fog of sadness. Walk to your car, Dash's gentle voice reminded him, and he slowly made his way to the car door, avoiding eye contact. He climbed in and slumped in his seat. You were great, Wes. I got some amazing footage, Dash said excitedly as she got in beside him. He started the engine and drove out of the neighborhood toward downtown. But there wasn't a police officer, he began. We don't need him, she replied casually. He wasn't in the shot. Besides, only you and Marlene know about him. She reached over and gave his shoulder a friendly squeeze. That was incredible, Wes. You really captured everything. Can we not talk right now? The sadness in his voice made her withdraw her hand quickly. For the rest of the ride, she mostly looked out the window, but occasionally glanced at him. By the time they reached the Samuels building, she had made up her mind. Park in the lot, she told him, and when he looked at her questioningly, she added, You're coming with me. She led him to her office and invited him to sit on the futon. Then she disappeared for a moment and returned with 2 bottles of drinks. They sat together and enjoyed their drinks in silence. Once they finished, she grabbed 2 more bottles. After they had drunk most of the second, she tried to start a conversation. You really got into that, didn't you? She asked. He stared off, then sighed. Yeah, I guess I did. It all came back to me out there. The shock, the confusion, the sadness. I suppose I never really dealt with it. She nodded. I'm sorry to put you through that, Wes. But honestly, your feelings will really touch the audience. He took another sip and looked at her. I still don't see how this will help. I'm going to use that video to begin your story. It will take you lower before we can bring it all back up to a positive ending. His expression turned sour. So you're promising me tough times, huh? Exactly, she smiled. But remember, it all turned out well for others in the end. Yeah, but only because they had America helping them. She nodded and grinned wider. Yep, and you have me on your side. It won't even be a fair fight. Then she stood up. But for that to happen, you need to leave now and let me work. Okay, Dash, for some reason I trust you. He stood too. Thanks for the drinks. She moved closer and, to his surprise, gave him a brief gesture of encouragement. Hang in there, Wes. I know it's tough right now, but things will get better, I promise. As he drove back to the motel, he felt a bit more hopeful. However, that good feeling didn't last into the next morning. There was no sign of Edith Norton, and the grind of his daily work quickly wore him down. The only bright moment was a call from Dash that afternoon. "Can you come over after work? I've got something I think you'll find interesting." With that to look forward to, the last couple of hours passed a bit faster. When he walked into Dash's office, she had him sit in one of the desk chairs and turned the big monitor around for him. "To understand what we're doing, you need to watch a little YouTube first," she said. "Have you heard of Gossip Gertie's back fence? No, should I know it? You definitely should. Right now, Gertie has one of the most popular channels on YouTube. Let me show you." On the screen, an ad for beauty products played, and Dash waited impatiently until she could skip ahead. When she did, the screen filled with a cheerful backyard scene with a white picket fence. Some lively music played in the background. The words, "Gossip Gertie's back fence," appeared in the sky. Suddenly, the scene shifted to a set with a desk covered in white fencing. Behind it sat an animated hostess in a colorful outfit reminiscent of the 1950s. "Oh, am I glad to see you!" the woman exclaimed excitedly. "I'm Gossip Gertie, and I just heard the juiciest news. Let me share what happened." With that, she began to tell a series of lively stories, sharing interesting news, helpful tips on style, and product suggestions. Behind her, colorful images and videos filled the screen, bringing her words to life. After a few minutes, Dash paused the show. "All right, I think you understand the idea. What do you think of it? Is this just a hobby for her?" "Hobby?" Dash laughed. "This is her full-time job. She can actually earn money doing this? Advertisers pay a lot to be featured on popular shows on YouTube. How much do they make? Let me put it this way. The host of a show with 1 million subscribers can earn just over $50,000 a year." He whistled. $50,000? That's pretty good. She smiled at him. Last year, Gossip Gertie's back fence had around 100 million subscribers. 100 million? That means she's making $5 million a year. He stopped, amazed by the number. Dash moved around the desk to sit in the chair across from the screen. "So here's the thing. For a show like this to succeed, it needs a constant stream of content. A lot of that comes from publicists, advertisers, and product promoters, but Gertie needs even more to keep her audience. That's where I come in. Sometimes I send her stories that I think she'll find useful. If she likes it, her show has a strong influence on her viewers. That's what I want to do with your story. Get it to her to help you get noticed." "So why would she be interested in my story?" he asked. "Simple," she said. "I'm going to present you as a symbol for everyone who's faced a sudden end to a relationship. But I'm the one who lost out, not the one who caused it. Not in my version. Here's the video I've put together, along with my script for Gertie. Watch." She clicked on a file, and the screen filled with a black and white video reminiscent of the neighborhood watch clip Dash's father had shown Wes. This time it showed Wes's car entering his driveway. Dash began to read aloud. "How many of you have felt the sadness of a breakup? How many have wished for a chance to change things?" Wes felt uneasy watching it. On the screen, he saw himself knocking on the door, but no one answered. In Sacramento, California, a wife had clearly reached her limit, changing the locks and asking her husband to leave. The scene switched to a view from the sidewalk, shot from a distance. It zoomed in on Wes's frustrated face. "Look at his reaction. He can't believe this is happening. Now watch as he receives his divorce papers," Dash narrated, and Wes's expression changed to one of despair. "And now for the final moment," Dash continued. "The husband has to walk back to his car and leave her life. It's hard to watch someone face the results of their choices." The screen showed Wes walking away slowly, his mood clear. Dash glanced at Wes, expecting him to be upset, but was taken aback by how strongly he reacted. "That was so embarrassing," he said. "Do we really have to show it like this?" She gently patted his arm. "I'm sorry, Wes, but this is the best way to tell the story." He shook his head, unsure. "All right, if you think that's best. At least no names were used. I hope no one figures out it's me." The young woman looked down, not answering. The next day at work, Wes received a text from Dash late in the afternoon. It said, "You're live on Gertie. Brace yourself. Things are about to get interesting." As the day went on, Wes focused on his tasks while keeping an eye on the office. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Edith Norton gave him a harsh look as he left at 5:30. But that seemed normal. Feeling relieved, he decided to check in with Dash for an update. He found her in her office, she always seemed to be there, and asked what was new. "Gertie loved your story," Dash said with a smile. "She used it just like you saw yesterday, except it was her voice, not mine, and she told me she's already getting a big reaction." She winked. "I guess people find it really relatable to see a man in a tough situation." "But that's not who I am," he protested. "Yeah, but they don't know that. Anyway, your story is getting attention online. Someone on TikTok grabbed a shot of your face and sent it to her network, and now it's being shared everywhere. I'm also seeing posts about it on my Facebook accounts, which means it's really picking up speed." She noticed the worry on his face. "But don't worry too much. Your online name is HH, for humiliated husband." "Just the nickname I wanted," he said sarcastically. "So what happens next?" "We'll wait another day for this to grow. Then we move on to phase 2. What's phase 2? "Oh," she said cheerfully, "that's when we change how people see you." He felt uneasy. "Do we really have to?" "Yes, Wes, you can't grow if you don't first face some challenges. I don't think that's what Newton meant." "Yeah, but Sir Isaac didn't know about the internet. He spent the rest of the evening feeling down, and it took a while for him to fall asleep in his small motel room. Because of this, he overslept and had to hurry to make it to work on time. As he entered the lobby, he noticed the receptionist giving him a cold stare. As he walked down the hallway to his cubicle, he saw her quickly pick up her phone to make a call. What was going on, he thought as he sat at his desk. The strangeness only increased as the day went on. It felt like too many of his coworkers walked past his cubicle, and he heard quiet whispers and muffled laughter from time to time. Finally, just before lunch, his boss walked into his office. "I don't know what you think you're doing, Wes Hardaway, but it's becoming a distraction in the office." "Edith, I'm just working on the Wilson file. I'm referring to that internet activity you've started. It's not very professional to share your personal matters openly." "Ma'am, I'm not sure what you mean, but I will have this file ready for you by 2 p.m. at the latest." "Fine, but email it to me. Don't bring it in person. With the way you go about things, it might take a while to reach me." She turned and left, leaving Wes worried. If anyone has seen me, that story must be everywhere, he thought. For the rest of the day, he focused hard on his work, trying to blend in. It didn't really help. Once, when he needed to go to the restroom, he saw a group of colleagues chatting in the hallway. A summer intern approached him nervously after being nudged by someone in the group. "Mr. Hardaway, some of the others want to know if your initials are HH." Wes stared at him in surprise as the group burst into laughter, and he hurried to the restroom. When 5 p.m. finally came, Wes quickly left the office, rushing past his co-workers toward his car. He drove straight to the Samuels building and rushed inside to see Dash. "What have you done to me?" he asked when she let him in. "I've been dealing with so many comments today. Everyone knows it's me, even my boss." "I'm not surprised," she replied casually. "Wes, you've become a meme." "A what?" "A meme, a picture on the internet that people use to express an idea or feeling. That clip of you walking away has been shared thousands of times. People see you as a man embarrassed by a woman." He sank into a chair, resting his head in his hands. Dash knelt in front of him. "Wes, I have to warn you. It's going to get worse. Tomorrow, Gertie is going to announce that you were served with a protection order. You know how people will react." When he groaned, she cupped his face in her hands and looked him in the eyes. "I know this will be tough for you, but the lower you feel now, the higher you'll rise later. You just need to be strong. Can you do that?" "Oh, Dash, I'll try. I don't have any other choice, do I?" Marlene. A little before noon the next day, Jack Mackenzie drove his silver BMW into the Hardaway driveway and parked it in the garage. After making sure the garage door was closed, he entered the house looking for his partner. When he found Marlene, she was sitting at her computer, frowning. "Have you seen this?" She pointed at the screen where Gertie Gossip was showing Wes's now famous exit from their house. "How did they get that video?" He looked over her shoulder and chuckled. "Probably one of your neighbors took it while out walking." He started to rub her shoulders. "But who cares? This makes Wes look like a fool, and you look smart to move on from him." "I guess you're right," she nodded. "But I can't help feeling a bit sorry for him. Look at the sadness on his face." I'm focused on something much more interesting than your soon-to-be ex-husband's face. He moved closer, and Marlene smiled. You know, I think we can find something better to do than watching mindless videos on the internet. Why don't you join me for a moment? Yes, he replied, eager to please. The next day started off a bit better for Wes. He still caught stares as he entered work, but the excitement about his situation seemed to have calmed down. I can handle this, he thought. But his peace was interrupted mid-morning when he got another text from Dash. Gertie, Part 2 is out. You're the star. Stay calm. Feeling uneasy, he opened YouTube and found the Gossip Gertie channel. After waiting through an ad and the show's introduction, he watched in shocked disbelief as the influencer shared details of his life. As a clip of him knocking on his front door played in the background, Gertie said, "You've all seen my segment on the humiliated hubby, but now his story has taken another troubling turn." The clip showed a server delivering papers to Wes. It turns out that it wasn't just divorce papers he received. The big news is that he also got a restraining order. An official-looking document appeared on the screen with the words, "Order of Protection," visible. "And that's not all," Gertie continued. "This order requires our humiliated hubby to stay at least 200 yards away from his wife at all times." It's not hard to imagine what circumstances led to that kind of action. No word yet on any charges being filed, but we'll keep an eye on that. All we can say to the wife is we hope you're safe, and to humiliated hubby, good riddance. And we hope you face the consequences of your actions. Oh no! Gertie seemed to have put a target on my back. I really need to get out of here. Usually there was a familiar noise in Wes's office. Phones ringing, machines buzzing, people walking by. But now the sound outside his cubicle felt different, more like an uneasy whisper. It made him stop in his tracks. He looked up and saw several co-workers talking among themselves, shaking their heads and glancing disapprovingly at him. He kept checking for a chance to slip away without being noticed, but the crowd only seemed to grow. He tried to focus on his work, but people kept passing his cubicle, quietly sharing criticisms that he was meant to hear. Suddenly, the chatter quieted and the crowd parted as Edith Norton entered his space. "Mr. Hardaway, I warned you about behavior that could hurt our office. Normally, your personal life is your business, but not when serious claims are involved." "But I never harmed Marlene," he exclaimed. "Then why did she feel the need to seek protection?" she pressed. "Why do you have to stay 200 yards away from her or face consequences?" "I really don't know why." "Enough!" she shouted, startling him. "This company does not tolerate such behavior, Mr. Hardaway. You'd know that if you spent less time online and more time reading the employee manual. But being unaware of company policy is no excuse. You are dismissed. You're no longer an employee here, effective immediately." Wes was dumbfounded. "But," she cut him off. "You will be paid for your work so far, and you'll receive an additional check for 2 weeks' pay as a parting gift. Now I need you to leave the office right away. Take nothing but your jacket. Any personal items will be sent to you later. Ralph here will escort you out." She nodded, and the security guard stepped forward. "Mr. Hardaway, we won't have any problems, will we?" Wes was in shock. He shook his head, allowing the guard to guide him away. The murmurs behind him grew louder. Once he got in his car, he slumped in confusion. A sharp knock on the window made him look up to see Ralph directing him to the exit. Wes started the engine and drove off slowly. He had no idea where to go, but soon found himself at the Samuels building. As anger replaced the shock of losing his job, he hurried to Dash's office. Bursting through the door, he went straight to the surprised woman's desk. "Well, I hope you're happy. Your story has just gotten me fired." "They fired you? Why?" she asked. "Because of their strict policies." She studied him carefully. "That's it?" "Oh, yes. Norton just let me go. They'll mail my severance." "That's great," she said, leaping up. "Don't go anywhere, Wes. I'll be right back." With that, she dashed out of the office. Feeling puzzled by her excitement, Wes sat on the futon. As the adrenaline faded, he began to feel tired. He was nearly asleep when Dash returned. She sat down next to him. "Oh, Wes, I'm really sorry you had to go through that. I knew Phase 2 would be tough, but I didn't expect your company to act so quickly." She took his hands. "This was the hardest part, Wes, I promise. We'll let things calm down tomorrow, then we'll start Phase 3. "Oh, no, what now?" "Don't worry. This is when things begin to get better. You've reached the lowest point. It can only get better from here. Oh, and my Uncle Winston says, whatever you do, don't cash any checks from your old job. Okay? You talked to your uncle about this? Yes. And he was clear. Don't accept any checks from your firm without his say-so. Wes looked at her, confused. That's easy for him to suggest, but I'll run out of money really soon. Paying for that motel, eating out, buying clothes, all of it adds up. She frowned. Right. I hadn't thought of that. Then her face lit up. How about you move in here? You want me to live in your office? Sure. I spend a lot of time here. There's a space back there that I made into a bedroom, and we turned the restroom into a proper bathroom. But I can't do that. Where would I? Oh, don't worry. You can sleep on the futon, just until we figure things out. Seeing his hesitation, she squeezed his hands. It's silly to waste money on a motel. Now that you're not working, you'll probably be here a lot, so it'll be more convenient. When he didn't reply, she suggested, let's grab some dinner and talk. She took him to a small bistro, and over dinner he shared everything that had happened at his office. She listened with sympathy and didn't say much. When they finished, she insisted on paying. Back in her car, she turned and smiled. You know what? We're really close to your motel. Why don't we stop by? You can pick up your things and check out, and I can take you back to the office. Though he still had doubts, he was too worn out to argue, so he let her drive him to the motel. He didn't have many belongings, so it didn't take long to settle the bill and head back downtown. Once he'd brought his bags to her office, she helped him set up the futon as a bed. Then, while she went to change, he switched into something more comfortable and settled under the blanket. When she returned, he smiled at the sight of her wearing a long T-shirt with video game characters. Do you have everything you need? She asked. He nodded, and she turned to leave. Dash, he called, stopping her. Thanks for doing this. I'm really glad I'm here and not at that motel. She smiled back. Me too, Wes. After she turned off the overhead lights, he lay back in the soft glow from the computer screensaver and small LED lights. As he closed his eyes, a wave of sadness washed over him. What had happened to my life? I've lost my marriage, my house, and my job. My friends have left me, and now I'm trying to sleep in this strange office on an unfamiliar bed. What went wrong? He kept searching for answers to that question until he finally fell asleep. The next morning, he woke up when Dash entered the office with coffee and sweet rolls. He still felt low, but she soon distracted him, getting him to look online for any mention of him and his situation. It didn't take long to find something. When Wes typed in humiliated hubby, he was shocked by the number of tweets, TikToks, Instagram posts, and other mentions. Someone had even made a Wikipedia page about him, and he couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. When he commented on how much he had found, Dash smiled sheepishly. I have to confess, Wes, I spent most of yesterday sharing your story online so people would see it. When he frowned, she quickly added, but it didn't take much effort. The internet picked it up and ran with it. I even found comments about you on websites in different countries and languages. Great, he said, sounding a bit sarcastic. Now I'm famous worldwide. Even more troubling for Wes was the harshness of some comments from anonymous users. Many urged him to do the world a favor and end it all, and similar things. I might need to hire someone for protection before this is over, he sighed, shaking his head. Dash wouldn't let him feel sorry for himself. The further you fall now, the higher you'll bounce back, she said. I really hope you're right, he replied sadly, because I feel really low right now. Marlene. At her home in Fair Oaks, Marlene was reading some of the same comments in response to Gossip Gertie's latest news. With a puzzled expression, she called her partner. Jack, things with Wes have really spiraled out of control. I want to separate from him, not destroy him. He never hurt me or did any of the things people online are saying. I feel like I should say something. No, he said firmly. You need to let this unfold. All this attention will help your divorce go smoothly, and you might even get a better deal. Plus, when we go public with our relationship, everyone will think you deserve some happiness after your hard time with Wes. This is working out perfectly. Do you really believe that? Definitely. Wes has attracted a lot of attention, and many people are eager to share their thoughts. He'll have a tough time bouncing back from this. Wes. That afternoon, Dash received a phone call and, realizing who it was, put her phone on speaker so Wes could hear. Hey, Gertie, I'm glad to hear from you. How did the latest news on humiliated hubby go? She asked, smiling playfully at Wes. Good reception? Girl, that story took off. It's the best material you've ever sent me. I've gained 50,000 new subscribers in just one day. Do you have more about the story? Perfect timing. I've been putting together some more details. I should have it ready for you by the end of the day. If you like it, you can use it for tomorrow's show. Really? What do you have this time? What if it turns out that humiliated hubby isn't that bad after all? She asked. Are you serious? Yes. With that, Dash shared the new information she'd gathered. When she finished, Gertie was excited. What a twist! My subscribers are going to love it. Let's turn this into 2 parts for even more excitement. Send both to me as soon as you can so I can start promoting it. After the call, Dash turned to Wes happily. Feeling a bit better? It's nice that Gertie liked it, but we'll see how her subscribers react. He gave her a small smile. But I have to admit, I'm feeling a little more hopeful. Dash worked into the evening to put everything together just right. Wes watched social media for new reactions, but mostly stayed out of Dash's way, letting her handle things. Once she was satisfied, she uploaded the information to Gertie. Only when Gertie gave her a thumbs up did Dash relax and turn to Wes. I'm starving. How about we order pizza? I have some drinks in the fridge so we can unwind. Sounds great. After they finished their meal, he stretched and looked at his temporary roommate with curiosity. So how did you and Gertie become such good friends? We became close when we were freshmen at Caltech. Caltech. Yep. To look at Gertie on YouTube, you'd never guess that she once wanted to be an electrical engineer. And you? She asked Wes. Oh, I studied computer science for a while, but I didn't finish. Life got in the way, and I dropped out. He sensed she was not eager to dive deeper, so he switched topics. How did you get the nickname Dash? Did you run track or something? She shook her head and smiled. Actually, Dash is short for Dashiell, like the writer Dashiell Hammett. My dad has always loved detective stories, especially The Thin Man and the Maltese Falcon. Wes nodded. Got it. And what about Daniels? Where does that come from? Her smile faded. Daniels is my ex-husband's last name, she said, her voice becoming quieter. Oh, wow, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up old memories. It's fine, she replied, staring into the distance. When I went off to college, I was the typical rebellious girl wanting to escape Sacramento. My ex, Joey, was a real troublemaker, and I was drawn to that kind of excitement. He led me into some tough situations. Bad choices, parties, you know the usual stuff young people get into. I really liked him. As the school year ended, the thought of being apart felt too hard, so we decided to run away together. My dad was upset but wanted me to finish my degree, so he helped us find an apartment in Pasadena and covered our expenses. What I didn't know was that Joey was spending a lot of that money on bad habits. I also didn't realize he was using the rest of it on someone else. Everything changed when Joey came home with someone new and said he was leaving. Wes noticed Dash seemed to be having a hard time processing the memory. It was really tough for me, she continued. Things turned dark. The money vanished, bills piled up, and I ended up without a home for a while. Luckily, my dad found me and brought me back home. It took time, but I got my life back in order and found a way to support myself, and here I am. That sounds incredibly hard, Dash. I really feel for what you went through, and I'm sorry I brought it up. It's okay. It's long enough ago that I've mostly moved on. She paused. Oh, and just so you know, I kept his last name because I didn't want to forget that part of my life. I wanted a reminder of what I went through. If I could start over, I might change it back to Samuels, but I've gotten used to it. That must have been really tough on you. Yeah, but at least I understand some of the challenges you've faced. Without thinking, Wes stood up and hugged her. After a moment, she hugged back. Ain't we a pair? She said with a little laugh when they separated. The next day, they sat together in front of Dash's big TV waiting for Gertie's new video. Wes was getting impatient with the slow loading, but Dash reassured him that it was likely due to heavy traffic. Those little teasers Gertie shared online must have created a lot of buzz. Finally, Gertie appeared on screen and could hardly contain her excitement. Gossip lovers, have I got something for you today? The story of the humiliated hubby just took a surprising turn. The screen displayed a clip from a doorbell camera in front of Wes's home. Here's the familiar home. Casa humiliated hubby. And look, there's a silver BMW pulling into the driveway. She paused for effect. But not before we caught the license plate. Who owns that car, you ask? The screen then showed a public photo of Jack Mackenzie, head of the Mackenzie Agency. Gertie's tone changed. Isn't that intriguing? Mr. Jack Mackenzie, whose agency buys art from the wife of humiliated hubby, has stopped by to offer support. But wait, let's check the date on this footage. She pointed at the corner of the screen. That's 3 months before Mrs. Hubby filed for divorce, and it looks like Mr. Mackenzie visited her multiple times during that period, as the screen showed images of the car arriving. Now, I'm not judging Mrs. Hubby for seeking comfort. What I'm saying is, there's a lot more to this story than we first thought. And Gertie promised more juicy gossip in the next episode, so viewers should subscribe to her channel. With that, Gertie moved on to another topic, and Dash turned off the TV. Both jumped to their feet and cheered. Wes gave Dash a big hug. That was amazing! You're amazing! He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, then leaned in to express his respect. After a moment, she smiled, matching his excitement. They shared a warm moment together. But before they could linger, there was a knock on the office door, and they quickly stepped apart as Winston Samuels' secretary peeked in. I hope I'm not interrupting. I was looking for... Oh, there you are, Mr. Hardaway. Mr. Samuels wanted to talk to you if you're free. Of course, Wes replied quickly. I'd be happy to meet with Mr. Samuels. He glanced at Dash one last time before following a friendly woman down the hallway to the lawyer's office. Winston Samuels was waiting and welcomed Wes inside. I was interested when my niece told me about your job situation. He looked at Wes thoughtfully. I hope she mentioned not to cash any checks from your old job or sign anything they might send you. Yes, she did, and I didn't. Good, the lawyer continued. Because if you did, it might mean you accepted a deal and you shouldn't accept anything from them right now. Okay, Wes said, feeling unsure. I understand you were let go for not following company rules, is that right? Yes, my old boss made that clear. Do you have anyone who can confirm that? I could probably give you the names of at least 6 people who were there and heard her. Great. If that's true, I've prepared a lawsuit for you against your former employer for wrongful termination. You didn't do anything wrong. Wes shook his head, and they had no real reason to think otherwise. Plus, how they let you go hurt your reputation. They should be responsible for that. I've also looked at the employee handbook and found that your boss didn't follow the right steps when they let you go. So I believe you have a strong case for a lawsuit. If you're okay with it, I'd like to file for $10 million in damages. Does that sound fair? Wes was surprised. $10 million? Yes, that sounds very fair to me. Do you think we could get that much? The lawyer smiled. I believe we have a good chance, but it would mean going to court and it could take 3 to 5 years. Wes looked worried. But, Samuels added, the company will probably want to avoid the bad publicity a trial could bring. And my assistant tells me your reputation is improving, which they will notice. I think they might want to settle quickly for about half that amount, plus my fees. $5 million would be okay with me, Wes replied quickly. The smile on the older man grew wider. I'm glad you feel that way. If you could sign this, we'll get started. Wes signed the document and stood to leave, but turned back. Mr. Samuels, will this affect my divorce? I really don't want Marlene to benefit from this. I don't think you should worry, the lawyer said. These events happened after the divorce papers were filed. Plus, your wife's actions indirectly led to your dismissal, so she shouldn't benefit from this. Excited by the news, Wes hurried back down the hall to Dash's office. When he entered, she was busy with her work. When he tried to share his news, she interrupted. Can it wait, Wes? I'm busy with another client. Without waiting for a response, she turned back to her tasks. He felt disappointed that he couldn't share his good news. What hurt more was sensing that Dash was preoccupied. Finally, he spoke up. I think I'll go for a walk. When she didn't reply, he turned and left. At street level, Wes headed toward the Capitol Mall. He walked along the sidewalk until he reached the Tower Bridge and stopped to look out at the Sacramento River. But his mind was elsewhere. I shouldn't have pushed myself on her like that. No wonder she doesn't want to talk to me now. Still, I thought she showed some interest. Maybe that was just out of kindness. He watched as workers loaded supplies onto a boat. Why did I even get involved with her? She's so different from anyone I've ever liked. But there's something about her. It seems pointless. She's clearly not interested in me. I'm just her client, nothing more. When he returned to the Samuels building, Dash was still focused on her work, and the distance between them didn't feel smaller that evening. Meanwhile, while Wes was at the mall, Marlene was calling Jack Mackenzie angrily from her office. When he answered, she didn't bother with a greeting. "Did you see that gossip show on YouTube?" she demanded. "How did they get that video of you coming into my garage? You said you were careful." "I was careful," he replied. "One of those video doorbells must have caught me. How was I to know they store everything they record? I want to know who told them to go looking in the first place. I wonder if Wes could have had something to do with this." "Wes? That doesn't make sense. You're talking about the guy everyone calls the humiliated husband. Do you really think he'd do that to himself? He didn't know anything anyway." "I get that, but it has to be someone." "Yeah, I'd love to find out who it is if we could figure it out. This is really messing up our plans." "I know, and I just hate it." Her tone softened. "You know what would make me feel better? Why don't you come over and hang out with me?" He paused, unsure. "I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I don't want to end up in another video. Maybe we should take a break until all this calms down. If you come over after dark, the cameras won't be an issue. Just turn off your headlights before you get to the driveway. And now that Wes is gone, there's no reason not to come at night." "I'll make it fun," she said playfully. "What time?" he asked. When he entered through the garage, Marlene stepped out of her room. Her outfit caught his attention. She wore all black, and as he looked on with a mix of curiosity and caution, she held something in her hand. "You took your time," she said teasingly. "I'm sorry," he responded sincerely. "I got delayed." "You know what you should do now? Head to the bedroom and lie down on the bed," she directed, her voice firm. "Yes," he said, and quickly followed her lead. Marlene enjoyed being in control, especially with someone as accomplished as him. She got to work, relishing the back and forth of their time together. The next day, things seemed to be back to normal between Dash and Wes. In fact, Wes noticed Dash was getting more excited as they got closer to watching the latest episode of Gossip Gertie. When it was time, she invited Wes to sit with her in front of the big screen. After the usual introduction, Gertie appeared, her energy clear. "I know many of you are curious about the humiliated hubby story. Last time I shared that his wife Marlene," her photo showed behind Gertie, "was seeing Jack Mackenzie from an advertising firm. Could that be why she asked her husband to leave? But some of you are worried about possible abuse. Remember, Marlene got a protection order against her husband. Maybe it was humiliated hubby's actions that led her to someone else." Gertie decided to check police records. Surprisingly, there were no complaints or calls about him. How strange. Maybe Mrs. Hubby wanted to embarrass him further. But if that were the case, why did Judge Harold Chalmers issue the protection order? What made him take such steps? Was the judge possibly campaigning for re-election? An ad saying re-elect Judge Chalmers in November appeared behind her. And could it be that 3 weeks before humiliated hubby got the order, the judge received a nice donation from a local advertising agency? She pointed at a list of donors, highlighting Mackenzie Advertising Agency, $10,000. Gertie tilted her head and smiled at the camera. "I'm not saying the judge acted because Mrs. Hubby's boyfriend contributed to his campaign. You can think what you want. What I do believe is that humiliated hubby deserves an apology." "Wow, that's impressive," Wes said as Dash turned off the video. "That should give Marlene and her new partner something to think about." He nearly hugged Dash but held back. "Dash, you're brilliant. That seemed convincing to me." "Thanks," she replied. "But the real test is how the audience reacts." She smiled at him. "Why don't you grab us some lunch? By the time you're back, we should know more." When Wes returned with food, Dash called him over. "Come look at this," she said excitedly, pointing to her screen. He leaned in and saw a long list of comments full of emojis and GIFs. "What's going on?" he asked. "This," she said proudly, "is the #humiliated hubby Twitter feed. Gertie's latest episode has sparked a tweet storm. This is just one part of the reactions. Gertie's show also gets feedback on YouTube, and there's more chatter on Instagram and elsewhere. Looks like a lot of people have already seen that last segment." Absolutely, and now they're really taking sides. She checked the screen. From what I can see, Team Hubby is ahead by about 70% to 30%. Wes took a moment to digest that. Wait, are you saying 30% of the audience is supporting Marlene? She waved her hand. Don't worry about that. There will always be different opinions. Not everyone agrees. What matters is that to the majority of the tweets, you've gone from being overlooked to being a hero. He gave her an appreciative look. Just like you said it would happen. I never thought it would work, but this story arc of yours is really taking off. He looked at her in admiration. You're quite impressive. Without thinking, he stepped closer, but she moved back. Listen, Wes, about what happened between us the other day. Oh, right. I think we should take a step back. I know we're sort of living together, but I'm not sure I'm ready to move forward. Oh, it's fine, Dash. I understand. I got a bit carried away. She looked at him uncertainly. I mean, I'm not saying... No, really, he cut in. I understand. Before they could talk more, Wes's phone rang. He checked it, and a surprised look came over his face. The call was from his former boss, Edith Norton. Wes, she said pleasantly, I'm glad to talk to you. Could you come by the office? I have some important news for you. I'm not sure, Edith. We didn't leave things on good terms last time. I know, Wes, and I regret that. But new things have come up that I think you'll want to hear. It's worth your time, I assure you. He considered saying no, but remembered the tension between himself and Dash. All right, he replied. I'll be there soon. When he arrived at his old office, the greeting he received was much nicer than before. The receptionist welcomed him warmly and even asked for his autograph. As he signed, Edith Norton came out to meet him. As she walked him to her office, he noticed heads turning to look at them. Let's get straight to the point, Wes, she began once he was seated. We had some rough moments last time we spoke. I wish I could take back some of the things I said. She looked at him to see his reaction, but he kept his face calm. The fact is, your work here has always been great, and we don't want to lose someone like you. We've missed you, so I'd like to offer you your old job back. He didn't respond, so she quickly added, I mean, not just your old job. We want to give you a promotion to director. He still said nothing, and she pressed on, and it won't be at your old pay. You'll get a 10% raise with the new title. He continued to sit silently, making her nervous. Did I say 10%? I meant 15%. That would put you at the top pay level for directors. And about the severance check you got, we want you to keep that as a signing bonus. What do you say? I have the papers ready. Just sign, and your new job is waiting for you. After your 3 weeks of paid vacation, of course. He sat up straight. So, Miss Norton, are you saying I was let go for something I didn't do? Are you admitting that my dismissal didn't follow the rules? That's all in the past, Wes. We don't need to go over what was likely a misunderstanding. Let's focus on the future, your promotion, your pay increase, and, oh, I forgot to mention, you're eligible for the bonus plan. Just sign these papers and... Wes interrupted her. Edith Norton, I want you to know that I'm not interested in the promotion or the pay raise. I'll see you in court. With that, he left her office, leaving her in shock. As he walked down the hall towards the exit, he thought he heard applause from some of the cubicles, but nobody was looking out this time. Later, Winston Samuels called Wes to check on his visit to his former job. Please tell me you didn't make any promises or sign anything, the lawyer said. When Wes explained what he told Edith, the older man actually laughed. Visiting without legal advice wasn't the best idea. Still, I see it as a good sign that your old boss is so eager to get you back. Given her attempt to win you over, I expect we may hear from their lawyers soon. Dash seemed a little more relaxed when he got back, and they decided to order dinner. While enjoying Thai food, Dash asked about his old job, and Wes shared his story about the confrontation with Edith. It felt natural to mention the lawsuit, too, but he didn't want to sound like he was bragging, so he kept quiet about the amount or the speed at which it might be settled. However, Dash seemed pleased for him. After everything, Wes, I hope something good comes your way. You deserve a chance to be happy. Their conversation slowed, and when he glanced over, he saw her looking at him. What's on your mind, Dash? She hesitated before asking, You asked about my past. Can I ask about yours? Of course, ask away. How did you and Marlene end up together? He sighed. I met her at a local event. She introduced herself, and we talked the whole night. I called her the next day, and when we met again, everything just clicked. It was incredible how much we had in common. Really? And when did you start thinking about a more serious future together? He paused to think. I think she might have hinted at it first, but I was the one ready to settle down. I couldn't believe someone as amazing as her would want to be with me, and I didn't want to let her go. So you didn't know her very well at first? Well, I thought I did. We talked about our pasts, and she mentioned she had separated from her ex when we started dating. He seemed difficult, so I thought she had made the right choice to move on. How long did you two date before you got engaged? I asked. He looked down, a bit embarrassed. Well, we got married 6 months after we met. He glanced at her with hope in his eyes. She told me she didn't care about what society expected of marriage. She thought it was just a way to take advantage of people in love. She wanted a simple ceremony, and that was fine with me. So once her divorce was final, we went to a little office to make it official. It felt really exciting and romantic then. She sat quietly thinking about what he had shared. Finally, he asked, So why were you curious about her? I just wanted to know how you two got together, she replied, standing up and yawning. I'm really tired. I think I'll head to bed. See you in the morning, Wes. He watched her go into her room and wondered, what was that all about? The next morning, Wes's phone rang early. Mr. Hardaway, a woman said, this is Winston Samuels' office calling. Mr. Samuels would like to meet with you this morning. Sure, I can do that, Wes answered, sitting up. Can we meet in about an hour? Great, I'll be there. He got up and knocked gently on Dash's door. She opened it, fully dressed. Good morning, Wes, she said. Who was on the phone? That was your uncle's office. He wants to see me in an hour. Can I use your shower? He looked down, feeling a bit messy. I think your uncle would appreciate it. Dash let him in, and he quickly freshened up. When he came out, he was happy to see Dash had made coffee and got some croissants. You need caffeine and carbs for a good breakfast, she said with a smile as they enjoyed the food. As he walked to the attorney's office, Wes found the receptionist waiting for him. He's expecting you, she said cheerfully. Winston Samuels looked serious as he invited Wes to sit at his big desk. I've been talking with the people from your old job, he said. Unfortunately, we couldn't agree on the $5 million we mentioned before. Wes felt a wave of disappointment, but the attorney's expression softened into a smile. I managed to get you a settlement of $6. $5 million. I hope that works for you. $6? $5 million? Are you serious? Wes exclaimed. They're also covering my fees, which is good because they can be quite high. The only thing is you'll need to sign a non-disclosure agreement and not talk publicly about the settlement. Will that be okay? Wes smiled. For $6, $5 million, I'll gladly keep quiet. Winston raised his hand to slow him down. Just remember that both the IRS and the state of California will take their shares first. After taxes, you'll get about half of what we discussed. Wes thought about that and smiled again. $3. $25 million is more than I ever dreamed of. The higher amount would be nice, but I'm not complaining. Then he grew serious. But I'd prefer if you didn't mention this to your family here. The older man nodded, understanding. I never share a client's situation without their permission. Thank you. I appreciate that. Before Wes went back to the anti-social network office, he made a quick call. When he returned, Dash was waiting eagerly. So what did Uncle Winston say? He kept a straight face. Do you have any plans for tonight? He asked casually. No. Why? She wondered, sensing a change in the mood. Good. I'd like to take you to dinner as a thank you for everything you've done for me. Have you ever been to the Firehouse restaurant? I'd love to go, but isn't it really expensive? Shouldn't we go somewhere else? She replied. He smiled. I already made reservations. I don't think it's too fancy for a thank you to someone who has helped me so much, and it seems fitting because I just got good news about my settlement. Her eyes lit up with excitement. Oh, Wes, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Then she paused, looking a bit worried. The Firehouse, tonight? I don't have anything nice to wear, and I need to fix my hair. Don't worry about that, he assured her. Don't worry about what? She asked, confused. Don't change your hair. Why? I thought you didn't like it. Actually, it took me some time to get used to it, but now I think it looks good on you. Okay, she agreed slowly, but she quickly went into her bedroom. A few minutes later, she came back. I still need to go shopping. I've only been to thrift stores for years. She grabbed her car keys. You stay here, she told him. If anyone needs anything, help them as best as you can and let them know I'll be back soon. With that, she quickly left the room, and he had to close the door behind her because she was already hurrying down the hallway. It was getting dark when she returned with several bags in her hands. After Wes let her in, she immediately went to her bedroom. He checked the time and decided it was time to get ready too. He found the only suit he had saved from his old home and put it on, along with a nice shirt and a pair of dress shoes. Behind him, he heard her say, "Well, what do you think?" He turned around to see her standing in the doorway, wearing a black ankle-length dress. The dress was simple but elegant, highlighting her figure. Wes was also surprised by her makeup. She had chosen softer colors, which made her look even more beautiful. He stared at her in surprise. "Dash, is that really you?" he asked. Her smile faded a bit. "You don't like it?" "No, it's not that," he quickly responded, moving closer to her. "You look amazing, like a model. I've just never seen you dressed so elegantly before." She relaxed and gave a small smile. "I was worried it might be too much, but it looked so nice in the store." He stepped back to admire her again. The black dress contrasted beautifully with her hair, and the silver heels completed the look. "You look so tall," he marveled, "and the dress really suits you." He glanced at his own outfit. "Now I'm wondering if I'm dressed well enough to go with you." She laughed, took his arm, and gave him a friendly gesture. "I'd tell you if you weren't. Now how about you call us a lift?" Later, as they were finishing their dinner on the restaurant's terrace, Dash took a sip of her wine, her expression turning serious. "Wes, do you remember the other day when I pulled away from you?" He had been chatting happily, but his smile disappeared at her question. "I remember, but that was my fault." She shook her head, interrupting him. "It wasn't about you, Wes. It was me." She looked down at the table. "Remember when I told you about my marriage and how difficult it was for me?" He nodded. "That really hurt me." She looked up at him with a vulnerable expression. "I haven't been in a relationship with anyone since my ex left me. Actually, I haven't even been out on a date since then." He looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Dash. I didn't mean to make you feel pressured. No, you didn't pressure me. I just reacted on instinct." She gave him a small smile. "When I first met you, I thought you were just another man whose wife had left him. But as I got to know you, I realized there was more to you. It's not just that we both had bad experiences with our exes. You're wise, funny, and romantic. But most of all, you're true to your wife and true to yourself. That's really important to me." She blushed and looked down. "I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you wanted to get closer, I wouldn't be afraid this time." He looked at her thoughtfully, then reached across the table to take her hand. Before he could say anything, the waiter came by to check on them. Wes looked up at him calmly. "I think we'll skip dessert." Dash blushed again. While Wes and Marlene were dining outside, Marlene was trying to reach Jack Mackenzie. When he finally answered her call, she confronted him. "What's this about bribing Judge Chalmers to get my protection order? You told me the judge was a friend of yours." "Don't be naive, Marlene. In politics, friend often means donor. When I asked him for the restraining order, he made it clear he needed a big favor to help me. But none of that matters now anyway," he replied. "What do you mean?" "After everything that happened, the agency's directors had a meeting today and fired me." "How could they do that? It's your agency." "Well, the agency's rules allowed them to do it, and they did. And to make things worse, the California Franchise Tax Board is sending an auditor to check our records. I'm in serious trouble." "Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry. Your sympathy isn't worth much to me right now, so how about you forget my number while I figure this mess out?" With that, he hung up. "Oh no, what do I do now?" she wondered aloud. "Wes, are you sure this is where you want to go?" the Lyft driver asked as he dropped Wes and Dash off outside the Samuels building. They were too caught up in their conversation to notice. Waving to the night watchman, they quickly made their way to the elevator and rode it up to the 6th floor. Once inside Dash's apartment, he reached for her, but she gently stopped him. "Wait here," she said, stepping away for a moment. "I'll only be a minute." He was checking his phone when he heard her voice behind him. "You can come in now." He hurried to her bedroom door and stopped, amazed by what he saw. The room was lit by soft candlelight, and Dash stood in the center, looking at him with a warm smile. "Oh, Dash!" he exclaimed. She held out her hands to him. "I want to be with you, Wes," she said earnestly. "I can't wait any longer." He moved closer and embraced her gently, holding her close. After a moment, he carefully led her to the bed. As she lay there, looking up at him, he quickly changed into something more comfortable and knelt beside her. "It's been a long time, Wes," she murmured. "Please be gentle." "Of course," he whispered, leaning in to kiss her forehead. Sensing her unease, he wanted to help her feel better. "Why don't you turn over?" he said gently. When she did, he started giving her a nice massage for her neck and shoulders. At first, she was tense, but soon his calming touch helped her relax. After some time, he worked on her back, making her sigh in relief. Next, he moved to her feet, rubbing them in a soothing way. Slowly, he worked his hands back up, helping her sink deeper into relaxation. Then he asked her to turn back onto her back and gently rubbed her face, providing comfort and making sure she felt safe. As they lay together, Wes pulled her close, enjoying the warmth between them. They shared a quiet moment, feeling connected and at ease with each other. Wes held her warmly, grateful for their closeness. They stayed together, enjoying the peaceful bond they shared. Underneath him, she made soft sounds of comfort, feeling blissful and carefree. With a happy shout, she stretched and they both fell back together, sharing a moment of true connection. "Wes, Wes, Wes," she whispered. When he felt her tears, he was briefly worried, but when he pulled away to check, she opened her eyes and smiled. "That was really wonderful, Wes. I don't remember feeling like that before." Then she leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. He woke early the next morning and lay on his back, thinking. After a little while, he got up and dressed quietly so he wouldn't wake her. Then he went for a short walk. When he came back, Dash was awake and dressed. As he entered, she looked at him, concerned. "What's wrong, Wes?" she asked. "Where did you go?" "I just needed some time to think." "What were you thinking about?" she asked, trying to hide her growing worry. He sat down across from her, looking serious. "This whole situation with my marriage, my home, and my job has made me rethink the future. Everything used to seem clear, but now I'm unsure about what I want to do and where I want to be." He noticed the worry on her face and continued, "I'm not originally from Sacramento. My dad was in the Army and we moved around a lot. After my dad passed, my mom brought us here because she had family in California. And now that she's gone, I don't have any family left here. I realized this morning that I have no ties to Sacramento anymore." He showed her his phone. "My realtor texted me that she expects to get an offer on the house soon." He took a sip of the coffee she made him without noticing her reaction. "I lost my job, but I didn't really like it anyway. Thanks to your uncle's help, I have some time before I have to find another one. Once the divorce is finalized, it will be my last tie to both Marlene and Sacramento." He shrugged. "The city is fine, but it doesn't feel special to me, if you know what I mean." She nodded, but her face still showed concern. "I've been thinking about all of this, and I believe I want to leave and start fresh somewhere else. Maybe the Pacific Northwest. I hear it's beautiful. Anyway." He paused, feeling a bit awkward. "I'm sorry, Dash. I know this is a lot to ask, but would you consider coming with me?" She was taken aback, but quickly gathered herself. "You want me to go with you? For how long?" He looked uneasy. "As long as you want." "But how long do you want me there? I don't want you to leave." She gasped and hugged him tightly, not letting go for a while. Eventually, he gently pulled away. "I know I'm asking for a lot, Dash. Leaving your family and job is huge, and you don't know me that well yet, but—" "Please, just listen," she interrupted. "Wes, your only problem is not understanding when someone is saying yes to you." She smiled at him warmly, and he finally realized she was on board. In the days that followed, they went about their lives as if in their own bubble, hardly noticing the world around them. The change in their relationship didn't go unnoticed by others around them, often bringing smiles and amusement. Even his two friends noticed and would roll their eyes at the sight of them together. However, reality eventually interrupted their little world. Wes needed to meet with Winston Samuels a few times about the divorce. Marlene had become more reasonable lately, and the issues that could have delayed things were quickly sorted out. Wes felt relieved that their split could be handled smoothly. The major detail left was selling their house, so he asked Winston to handle the closing for him. Winston also had some documents for Wes to sign related to his settlement with his accounting firm. Wes was happy with the outcome, but chose not to mention it to Dash just yet. Meanwhile, Dash had her own work to finish, especially for her father. Nervously, she went to tell him about her plans to leave with Wes. "Dash, are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I still remember what happened when you left with Joey. I just don't want you to get hurt again." She readied herself for the talk she knew was coming. "It's not the same, Dad. I'm older now and more careful with my feelings. Plus, Wes is nothing like Joey. He's calm, focused, and does not have any problems with habits. When we went out to dinner the other night, we just shared some wine with our meal." "I know," her father said, catching her off guard. "I've looked into him." When she frowned, he added, "What? You didn't think I'd let him get so close to you without checking on him?" "I almost lost you once. I won't risk that again." She wanted to argue, but he stopped her. "Wait, you haven't heard everything I've found out." He smiled reassuringly. "From what I discovered, he seems like a good guy, reliable, smart, and hardworking. People at his workplace have spoken well of him. And there's more, Dash. He's been a loyal partner. The only thing I can criticize him for is being a bit gullible about Marlene, but I'd rather someone trust their partner than be suspicious. All in all, I think you've made a good choice. I'll miss having you around, but if you want to be with him, I support you." "Oh, Dad," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around him. He hugged her back tightly, realizing she hadn't called him Dad in a long time. When they pulled apart and she returned to her chair, he pointed toward the law offices. "I'm glad you two won't have to worry about money issues like you did with Joey. Still, it makes me sad to think about you closing your business. You're really talented at it. I depend on you more than you know." She laughed. "Just because I'm with Wes doesn't mean I'm quitting. I can run my business from anywhere as long as I've got my laptop and good internet." She smiled widely. "You won't be getting rid of me that easily." "I'm happy to hear that, Dash." Then his expression grew serious. "Now there's something else I need to share, and Wes should hear it too. Can you see if he can join us?" Confused, she went to find Wes. When they both returned, Trevor sat on the edge of his desk. "I have some important news that might affect you both. The word is that Jack Mackenzie, your former wife's associate, has been let go from his agency and is being looked at for possible tax issues." Wes shrugged. "I'm not feeling sorry for him." "And there's more," Trevor continued. "I've also heard he and Marlene aren't together anymore. In fact, they're not even in touch." Wes and Dash shared a glance. "Good," he said firmly. Dash turned to her father. "This is interesting, Dad, but why is it such a big deal?" Trevor looked at them. "It's not what's happened that matters, it's what might happen next. Wes, your ex has lost her support. Right now, she has no new partner or way to sell her art. I think she might try to reach out to you." "What?" Dash gasped. "Good luck with that," Wes replied. "I don't want anything to do with her again." Trevor nodded. "I understand, but don't underestimate her. If she tries, she could delay your divorce. She could have her lawyer raise objections or suggest counseling that would slow things down. Dash has mentioned your plans to leave town, but Marlene might try to put a stop to that for a long time." "But why would she do that?" Wes asked sharply. "For one thing, the longer you're married, the longer she has a place to stay and a way to support herself. Secondly, this gives her more time to try and win you back. The longer you're married, the more chance she has to come up with a new plan. If she hears about your financial situation, she might even try to get money from you to let the divorce go through." Wes was taken aback. "You don't know the half of it," Trevor continued, explaining what else he had found. By the time he finished, both Wes and Dash were shocked. As they walked back to Dash's office, Wes looked frustrated. She was concerned because she had never seen him this upset. "What are you going to do, Wes?" she asked softly. "What I really want is to confront her," he said firmly. Seeing Dash's worried expression, he quickly added, "But don't worry, I won't do that. After everything she's put me through, I just wish I could find a way to make things right." She thought for a moment. "I think I might know someone who could help us." He looked puzzled, but then smiled. "Gertie," they said together. "Let me text her and see if she'd be interested in another segment for her show," she suggested. When she sent the message, it only took seconds for her phone to buzz with a reply. She read it and grinned, turning the screen so Wes could see it. "I want it, I want it, I want it," the message read. They quickly got to work, putting together the information Trevor had found in a way that Gertie could use. They had been focused for a couple of hours when Wes's phone rang. Dash saw who was calling and noticed the anger on Wes's face. She decided to step into her bedroom to give him some privacy, but she could still hear the tension in his voice. When it seemed like the call was over, she came back. "As you guessed, that was Marlene," he said to her. "Looks like your dad was right. She wants me to meet her at our house tomorrow to discuss some last-minute details. She also hinted that she might want to talk about getting back together. And I told her I would let her know later. The big question is how soon we can gather the information for Gertie and when she could share it on her channel. If we can get it to her today, I bet she'll want to share it right away. It might mean a late night for us, but I think it would be worth it. Let's do it." "Okay, I'll inform Gertie about our plan." "Great," he said. "I'll call Marlene back and tell her I can meet her tomorrow afternoon. Hopefully that will give Gertie enough time." Dash smiled and held up her phone. "Based on her reaction just now, I don't think you need to worry too much." Marlene. The next afternoon, Marlene was nervously checking herself in the mirror when Wes arrived in a rideshare car. At first, she was surprised, but then she realized this could work to her advantage. If nothing else, she would be able to give him a lift back to his place. If all went well, he might stay longer. As he stepped onto the porch, she opened the door for him, eager to greet him. When he came in, she smiled warmly and tried to keep things friendly. "Don't rush," she reminded herself. "This is about building connections, not putting on pressure." She invited him to sit on the couch while she took a chair facing him. She crossed her legs comfortably, feeling somewhat confident. "Do you have the papers we need to sign?" he asked. "I do," she replied, placing them on the coffee table. "Before we get into that, I need to say something," she began, taking a deep breath. "Wes, I want to apologize. I've made some big mistakes and treated you badly. This whole divorce situation feels like waking up from a bad dream. I can't believe my choices. I was selfish and unkind, and I wish I could make it up to you." He opened his mouth to respond, but she continued. "I think realizing we might sell the house made me see what I've done wrong." She smiled softly. "We had so many wonderful times here when we were hopeful and happy. Now, thinking about losing that is hard for me." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Wes, do you think there's a chance we could find that happiness again? We don't have to sell the house. If you were willing to try, I'd do everything I could to make you happy." He looked at her with disbelief. "Let me understand this, Marlene. You want me to forgive you for all the hurt and forget about the restraining order and locking me out of my own home? I know I hurt you and damaged our relationship. I can't explain why I acted that way, but I've realized what a good thing we had and how sweet life could be together. Please, let's not throw away the good memories." He stared at her, clearly shocked. "Are you serious?" he said sharply, and she recoiled. "Let me be clear. I'm an accountant. I deal with what is real. Marlene, you are a big issue in my life. The sooner I can move on, the happier I will be. Now please give me the papers to sign and I'll leave. With any luck, it'll be the last time I see you." Feeling shaken, she handed him the papers from the real estate agent. As he took them, she saw a car pull up outside, running but not parked. He quickly signed, stood up, and headed for the door while she searched for words that could change things. Before she could say anything, he turned and gave her a slight smile. "Have you heard of Gossip Gertie?" he asked. She couldn't help but wince. "I think you should check out her latest show. You'll find it interesting." With that, he opened the door and walked out to the waiting car. "Everything okay?" Dash asked. He nodded, smiling. "Everything is just fine." As they drove away, Marlene rushed back to her computer, opened YouTube, and found the Gossip Gertie channel. She watched in increasing anxiety as Gertie began her introduction. Then on the screen behind her, a label read, "The Truth About the Humiliated Husband." "Hello, everyone. I hear you want to know more about the humiliated husband and his not-so-honorable wife. Well, I have the final piece of their story. It turned out that she wasn't pursuing a divorce just for marital issues. No, she wanted out to explore another relationship. Behind Gertie, a graphic of a protection order was displayed. She even managed to influence a judge to get a protection order against her husband to ruin his reputation. Quite harsh, right? But that's not all. We did a little digging to learn more about her with help from some of you out there. Guess what? Wifey was not an innocent caught in a tricky situation. It turns out the whole marriage was a trick, a scheme that she pulled on not just one or two, but 5 unsuspecting husbands. That's right, our main character was actually husband number 5, but he had no idea at the time. Our clever antagonist, let's call her Mrs. Machiavelli, came up with quite the plan. She would find a good man, charm him into marrying her, and then leave him once a wealthier one came along. This is the trick Mrs. Machiavelli managed to pull off again and again, getting better with each attempt. She had a crafty way of keeping her last husband busy while she worked on her next target, and her plan might have gone smoothly if it weren't for some of Gertie's busybodies revealing the truth. This time, it looks like Mrs. Machiavelli's latest plot has been stopped. Her pick for husband number 6 is now tied up with a tax issue. And what about husband number 5, our main character? Well, one of Gertie's favorite gossipers told her that he's moving on with someone special. From what I hear, he's not feeling ashamed anymore. Before we wrap up this tale, I have one last interesting piece of news. It seems there are some unhappy former husbands in California who would like to speak with Mrs. Machiavelli. It turns out that the first times she ended her marriages, she didn't finish the legal steps. She just, allegedly, took off with the poor guy's money and left town. So let me finish with a word of caution to the men of Sacramento. Watch out for Mrs. Machiavelli. She's probably already on the lookout for her next unsuspecting husband. If you find yourself drawn to her charm, don't say I didn't warn you. And now let me tell you about a certain Hollywood star. No! Marlene shouted, slamming her laptop shut and interrupting Gertie's voice. Before she could gather her thoughts, her phone rang. Seeing it was a friend calling, she answered. "Hello, Marlene," said the voice on the other end. "Or should I say, hello, Mrs. Machiavelli?" Frustrated, Marlene threw her phone across the room and exclaimed, "Oh no, I have to leave this town." Wes and Dash had driven a short distance on I-5 when Wes glanced over at Dash. "I was thinking, instead of taking the interstate, how about we switch to the 101 and drive up the coast? What do you think?" A nice drive along the beach with lovely little inns in seaside towns. It sounds beautiful. Let's do it. He reached over and squeezed her hand. "It'll take longer to get to Seattle, but we're not in a rush." "Well, as long as we get there before our money runs out, we'll need jobs once we arrive." He raised an eyebrow. "I don't think we need to worry about that, babe." Then it hit him. "Oh, I forgot to tell you about the settlement I received." "You mentioned it was nice." He felt a little shy. "Well, pretty nice. $6, $5 million. Her eyes grew wide in surprise. "What? But after taxes, it's really about half that." She was still taking in the news. "That's incredible, Wes. Why didn't you say something sooner?" "I didn't want you to think I was trying to impress you with it." She rolled her eyes, encouraging him to go on. "Besides, it's not typical money people talk about. I mean, it's not even as much as Gertie makes in a year." She looked at him sincerely. "Wes Hardaway, I don't care about the money. And as for your job, let me handle that." "My job is to use social media for my clients' needs." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. With a playful smile, she added, "Your job is to take care of me. Think you can manage that?" He returned her smile happily. "I can do that, Dash Daniels." If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.